I guess that's what I lean towards artists who draw stuff that looks like that cartoon that I watch, or if you do like a facsimile of it versus like your because DC did have a few '90s style artists that like on Justice League Extreme or stuff like or even like the regular Justice League title. I mean, Howard Porter, he's a weird one. Which after me reading the JOA Grant Morrison stuff, his art's good, but it's very '90s.
Well, and also, I think he's really great on that first arc. I loved his stuff on the first arc. And then sometime around issue 10 or so, when he had to start drawing more and more characters, the anatomy and the composition got really funky, just really weird. And everybody was drawn like they were getting too much sodium in their diet. They all look kind of bloated. So he started giving Superman that kind of broader nose, and he kind of looked off all the time. And he eventually kind of came back from that. But there's that period where it's like, this should be your golden age, and instead I think you were kind of turning some folks off because everybody looks a little paunchy and just weird. Everybody he kind of had like this horror quality where people have these looks like looks of terrorists. Like, your superhero shouldn't look like that, dude. What the hell's going on?
I mean, I liked his Wonder Woman a little bit.
Yeah,
I liked his Batman a little bit because the way they colored him, he looked like he was from the movies, with black, like the black cape and then the dark gray bodysuit and the bright yellow belt, which they kept him like that for the longest time in that book. Because I think this is like post Trioka, and also post Batman Forever, because Belt came out around the same time.
I want to say they probably nitpicked his big three, and that might have been part of the problem. Is he was maybe struggling with them, but he was so good at drawing the Flash. I think he's one of the best Flash artists of all time.
I like his Flash.
Yeah, he's probably the best Kyle Rayner artist, Green Lantern artists, and he's one of my favorite Martian Manhunter artists, certainly. And I think
I like the way he drew his face and that big brow,
enormous Bart Searsy brow. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, which in the cartoon kind of almost does the same thing a little bit, because when I watched the cartoon and when I read that run, I'm like, okay, I see a 1-to-1 comparison here, But like his Batman was always a strange one because they had the circle, and I'd seen Batman with the circle a long time when I started reading this run. I'm like, okay, this Batman circa after Bane and after Trioka, but pre-Contagion and No Man's Land, and after reading volume 4 of the run, they did like one issue about No Man's Land, about people trying to invade Gotham during that crisis, and Batman saying, I can't leave Gotham, but he's sending Huntress to go do stuff for him and stuff like that, and like almost towards World War III, but Gotham was still in No Man's Land, so that might have been like 1999. So I might have been like post Batman and Robin, the movie that killed superhero movies.
Yeah, I think that was one of those fill-in issues. I think Mark Paggiarillo might have done it. He did a bunch of horrible fill-in issues.
I know his art was a little bit strange.
I hated his stuff. His stuff. That's one of the things that killed me with JLA is it was so nice to see a flashy artist do the Justice League characters after having seen them drawn by so many backbenchers, basically. So it was really cool to see them image style, and then they'd get Paggiarillo, who also had sort of an imagey style, but all the worst image excesses, like terrible anatomy, terrible camera work, the positions of the characters. Everybody had the same stupid faces, like they 1 to 3 faces. There's screamy face, frowny face. I hated his stuff. And then when Paggiarillo was the one, or Val Simics would be drawing it, and it would look like some crappy, like off-brand cartoon. It looked like Filmation Justice League. It's just they had the worst fill-in artists on just JLA.
But I don't know. That's the thing. As I'm reading this run, it's like I'm there for the Howard Porter parts, and when the other guy you mentioned, he just turned me right off because I felt like, all right, well, where did it get you from, and what were you drawing before this?
And it made me so mad too because they got Val Simics to do the JLA Wildcats crossover. So instead of getting a cool Wildstorm aisle, it's a cool story, but I don't think the art's very good. And then Paggiarillo did Witchblade JLA, which I wasn't as worried about, but it looked terrible too.
I didn't get that one.
Yeah. So, I think I don't even remember who wrote that one. I think they got one of the Witchblade guys to write it. I think so. Nobody cares about that one. I think that's before Ron Mars was doing stuff for him. Honestly.
Okay, because Ron Mars was pretty prolific in the '90s.
Yeah. That might have been go ahead.
I was going to say I remember as Silver Surfer. I never read his Green Lantern, even though I was aware of it. And I don't know. I mean, he's cool on Twitter. I mean,
yeah. Ron Mars is one of those guys who his name was never going to get me to read a book. If he's writing a character I already like, which he rarely did, then I would probably be cool with him writing it because he seemed like he honored the character as well. But he was never somebody who's going to get me excited, and he would consistently write characters that I wasn't worried about. But because of the Spawnometer podcast, I know at some point I'm going to hit on his Witchblade run, and I'm sure I'll like it fine. You're going
to get Stormwatch, are you?
Eventually we'll get to Stormwatch, yeah. But I'm going going to give the Wildstorm books sort of short shrift because they're DC properties now, and so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. But it's going to kind of depend. Like we recorded years ago at this point the entire Wetwork series.
I listened to one.
Well, no, we did the prelude, that the what I called the ash can, but I've got
commented on that one.
Yeah, I think I've got something like 3 or 4 hours worth of recordings on Wetworks that cover the entire series. And part of it was that so much of the first recording I did with Mr. Fix-It is me just talking at him that I needed to get somebody else to come in to give me some flavor, so I got Ryan Daly for that. But because of the connections between Liefeld stuff and Spawn stuff, I haven't been able to touch that stuff, and it's just been sitting for years at this point because it's going to be a hell of a job to edit, and B, it's not remotely relevant to the Image universe for the most part, and it's not relevant to Spawn in particular.
They used to be, but they're not anymore.
Exactly. So because they got sold off, it's like, I'll touch on them, but part of the point of Spawnometer is to talk about creator-owned comics, and those aren't creator-owned comics anymore.
No, but I guess in my heart, I find Wildcats in them to kind of still be Image. Even I know DC. Yeah. I got like the absolute Wildcats, and I got like the 2 trade paperbacks of Warren Ellis's run on Stormwatch. And I remember when I got those, I was just reading that stuff like it was going out of style because I was like a fan of that stuff because once again the cartoon of Wildcats and the cartoon of Gen 13. So once again, if it's a cartoon they made of it, I'm interested, And I know Liefeld had no cartoons,
unfortunately. Well, except for that 4-minute snippet on YouTube that he finally.
I've seen it. It looks like it would have been good.
Yeah, it would have been.
I guess in my head canon, I'm thinking Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and James Tucker and all them could have done. If you paid them enough and put them on all these things, they would have gave you all gold. You know what I'm saying? Or I would say the people who did the X-Men cartoon, you would have still had something that people would still talk about today. You know what I mean? Or even with Spawn, like Todd McFarlane, at least he got a good bench crew, not a bench crew, got an all-star crew to really put it to bring it to life. If the movie sucked,
and it's funny too.
The
animation shows you one of the problems we have with comic is you'll have some great black showrunners. Alan McElroy was huge in making Spawn what it was. Larry Houston was huge in making X-Men what it was. Dwayne McDuffie was huge in making Justice League what it was. We always lose those creators to animation because we treat our people like shit, and animation treats them halfway decent. And
I feel like if I ever go into animation, I feel like, I hate to say it, it's like I love comics, but I see what they do. I don't know. One half of me goes, I love drawing and I love making up stories and I love collaborating with people. The few people I've collaborated with, I like, try to go like, okay, this is gonna look like the stuff I wanted to read as a kid, or I did watch as a cartoon as a kid and as a teenager. And I guess for me, when you mention all those people, before I knew their names, I just didn't know, any more else about them. And the older I get, I'm like, one day I hope I at least get to turn out to be like them. You know what I mean? But comic book wise, like when you want a black creator on something, you don't just give them black characters. Or if you do, you got to really put your money behind them. You got to really push them, like you push Brian Michael Bendis and all of them.
Well,
Christopher Priest, Wonder Woman, I like to see the same type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Christopher Priest is a perfect example. He refuses to write black characters, but every series you put him on suddenly has a bunch of black characters in it. So, but he knows that it's commercially such an uphill battle, and he got tired of the reputation to be the guy whose books always get canceled. So he just absolutely refuses to write black characters now, but he's always got black characters in his books. Like I'm reading Vampirella now, and the main supporting character is Samuel L. Jackson playing a psychiatrist. I
mean, the thing I heard a lot about Christopher Priest because he's another one who's like, I think he worked on Spider-Man, was he, in the 80s?
Yeah, back when he was Jim Owsley, yeah.
Yeah, because I think I have a few of those issues because I'm a big Spider-Man fan. Probably can't tell, but yeah, I'm a fan. That's another cartoon I watched, I annoyed my mom saying, you got to get me that action figure of Spider-Man. I got one for Christmas, which was like Battle Damage Spider-Man. Anyway, that's a weird aside because black producer was on that cartoon. James Semper Jr., was it?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not a big Spider-Man guy, so I need help with that one, yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know. All the stuff I liked as a kid, black people had a part in it. Because at the time as a kid, I didn't know all that. I was like, Spider-Man's cool, Batman's cool, X-Men's cool, all the cool shit. Sometimes on Twitter, I go on and on about like, this is awesome and this is awesome. Because in my tweets, it sounds like I'm talking right now, like, all right, I like this stuff. So I get all Quentin Tarantino-like, but not about my own feet. But that's the thing with Larry Houston. I had no idea, even a black person even worked on X-Men, let alone he liked the same type of stuff that I did, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was the showrunner, I think, for the entire series.
And I see his name in the credits, because I'm thinking, who's Larry Houston? My small, my small brain didn't know nothing. Snot-nosed kid was like, oh, Larry Houston, whatever. As long as Wolverine and Storm and all them get to do something, that's cool. I learned something, But with Superman animated series and whatnot, there wasn't very many black people working on that, right?
Oh, on which one?
The Superman animated series.
Oh,
I mean, besides James Tucker.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
That's the thing, though. I know who Glenn Murakami is.
Mm-hmm.
I know Deanie and Tim are.
Mm-hmm.
I know Eric Radomski is. Mm-hmm. James Tucker's that weird one because if I didn't look at the special features, I wouldn't have known he had anything to do with it.
Yeah, he's one. I didn't start hearing his name really until Justice League. I don't remember hearing. But again, the part of that might have just been that we weren't as aware of the people behind the scenes on cartoons back in the day. You know? So
because they just came on TV and that's what you got.
Yeah, because the reason why I know Larry Houston, he was like the voice. He was the guy who, if you wanted to talk about the animated series, they would do an interview with Larry Houston because he's the guy. So
I got the book called Previously on the X-Men by Eric Leinwald.
Mm-hmm.
I bought that like 2 years ago because I really liked that cartoon. So I figured I'm going to read about this show. Because I know I think Fox Kids at the time, they let things go, but they had all this, red tape. I mean, Batman got away with a few more things than X-Men did. Mm-hmm. More things than what Spider-Man could ever do, which, much as I like that cartoon, they couldn't punch people in the face.
I can see
in my head, once again, he's another character. I'm like, oh, that's Billy Zane. I mean, I know the other guys who voiced the demon were great, but Billy Zane he's my go-to. I wish you would have let him do more with that character. Another character who, in my alternate weird universe, you would have had a cartoon in 5 movies. We would have had Justice League Dark already.
Did you ever read the Garth Ennis stuff?
J.M. DeMatteis?
No, the Garth Ennis Etrigan stuff.
I read a little bit of it. I know there was an annual to introduce Hitman.
Mm-hmm.
Hitman with Tommy Monahan. I think I read a scan of that one time. I'm like, oh, this is where he came from.
Mm-hmm. A few years ago, they did a collection of the Garth Ennis run with John McCrae, and for my money, I haven't read the Kirby stuff, but that's my favorite Demon material by far is that run of issues.
I'm gonna get a trade of that too.
Yeah. My understanding, again, my buddy Fix-It sometimes isn't quite on the level. Like he'll think something's the case and it isn't the case. But he was telling me those trades are apparently collector's items that they're tough to come by.
Collector's items?
Yeah, you might have an easier time finding the individual issues because the run was only. It ended on issue 66 appropriately, and I think it started somewhere in the 40s, like 41. And what's funny too, they had an issue, there's like their preview issue with that creative team, and the very next issue was done by one of the Batman animated series creators as a one-off. Might have been Kevin Altieri, and then the next issue started their run proper. But I want to say it was around issue 40, and they had about a 26-issue run. They collected it in 2 trade paperbacks a few years ago. They may or may not be collector's items, depending on the veracity of Fix-It. But the individual issues, you can usually find them in GD bins.
He's another character I got into because I've seen him in animation. Because before that, I had no idea who the hell Jason Blood was until that cartoon. And then even clearing the Witch Boy, he was an episode called The Demon Within, which was like 97, 98. It was a strange one. I'm like, well, what's Batman being friends with this guy who looks like these two must have had an adventure together, which we didn't see.
Yeah.
But Tim Drake's like, who is this? And why does that boy over there keeps calling you his uncle? And then they had a Catwoman monster thing. I mean, that's the thing, Batman animated series. I feel like the DC cartoons it's almost like, hey, this is what we got in the books, y'all. They did everything with show Hitman, but when they made an allusion to Hitman got killed in Justice League when Stephen Mandragora was saying, well, Tommy Monahan, he might have got hit by a train. I'm like, I want to see that.
Most of the characters you referenced would have been in the Kirby material and in the Alan Grant run with often Val Simic. The Garth Ennis run is much more like what if Quentin Tarantino had done the Demon. So it's way darker, way more gunplay, way more influence of Korea or Asian Hong Kong action movies, and just way darker. But
this all predates Hitman's ongoing series, right?
Exactly. Well, he spun out of that because what happens? He debuts in that annual, and then he's a supporting character in the book for a one extended story arc, and then after the series was canceled, that's when they launched the Hitman series. If you like Hitman, Demon is like that, but more horror centric. It's a darker book than Hitman was. So
picture me like if they would have done the Demon as an animated series and I have it on HBO. Yeah. Billy Zane still reprises his role and they do more crazy stuff. But I'm trying to think who would voice Hitman on that show if they would have done it.
Well, they definitely need an Irishman. So maybe that one comedian that got big a year or two back. Or there's a bunch of Irish guys you could pull it for that.
I mean, I wouldn't say Billy Connolly, but he was in Boondock Saints.
Yeah, but he's
The old guy
my
with the beard.
understanding is, I want to say he has early onset dementia, so he's not acting anymore.
Oh, okay, well, I was saying back then, not now.
Oh, sure, gotcha. Okay.
But let's say if they would have made a show back then, yeah, he probably would have done it. Or to get the guy that plays Daryl Dixon. But then again, they were like, oh, I don't know, I'm up here rattling off cartoons they would have made or never made.
I was trying to think of the name of that guy who took over from...
still here?
Yeah, no, I'm still there. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay. I was trying to remember
I can hear you now.
Okay, no worries. I was trying to remember the name of that fellow that took over the Late Late Show back in the day. He was an Irish fellow then
Craig
as well.
Ferguson.
Craig Ferguson could have been a funny one. That would have been a different kind of role for him. If we're doing it in the 90s.
It would have been different. Yeah, if we're doing 90s circa DC AU, like they're Harley Quinning it up before Harley Quinn, voice-wise, that's how they would have done it. Because I look at Harley Quinn and I go like, well, you could easily do either a demon show or a Hitman show, or, you can always do both.
My name is Craig Ferguson. I am Scotty.
I mean, it's like when we go back to what saying about Wonder Woman. It's like, I mean, these characters that never were in a cartoon, I'm like, they should be in one. I mean, DC. I mean, you all sleeping on some people here, right? I mean, Harley Quinn was already in a cartoon before the cartoon she's already in, and before she was in movies. But you look at
it's difficult now because they're so protective of their IP, and like I don't think you can get. What's that?
Go on.
Okay,
you still here?
Yeah, no, I feel like you could never get a Justice League Unlimited again, so I'm glad we got it when we did, because I don't think you'll ever have that kind of unfettered access to the greater universe, because they're always going to be working some side hustle where they're trying to do a Stars and Stripes series or something like that. It'll always prevent
right now.
Yeah, there'll always be some other hustle that prevents them from letting them use those characters. I guarantee if they tried to do that cartoon now, they wouldn't have access to any of the characters in the Berlanti verse. There'd be all sorts of restrictions. So yeah, you couldn't do it again.
More embargoes.
Exactly.
Like, I want to see Azrael in something. I know it's crazy as that. I know they did him in Gotham, but I wasn't John Paul Valley. And in a way, John Paul Valley is a cool looking action figure, and I want to get that one, the BTAS style one. I seen a picture, like, it looks awesome, and also he's gonna be in the comic too. So I'm like, oh yeah. And I think I picked up one comic with him in, and I'm like, this ain't Bruce.
Well, they reintroduced
like this.
They reintroduced that costume in Doomsday Clock not too long ago as a new character named Nightfall. So maybe something will come of that.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I know I don't know what it is with DC. It's like, I like their characters who just didn't have shows, who should be in shows. I mean, okay, CW thing, I get what they're doing there. It's soap opera, and I kind of like soap opera because I got 5 seasons of The Flash. So I have myself to blame for that. And Just League Unlimited, and they're like, well, that's the toy box, like, this is everybody, and even everybody doesn't even say nothing. You look at them and go, I know who you are, you know what I mean? They did a cartoon called Justice League Action, which once again reminded me of the Super Friends, but, because of its light tone. I mean, you know who Batman was, because Kevin Conroy voiced that, and they had a different version of Wonder Woman who was more or less like the movie version. They didn't go into her backstory, but she looked like, the Gal Gadot one a little bit with the skirt and the sword and all that stuff. She used her lasso very rarely and all that. I don't know. It's another cartoon which made me think about Justice League Unlimited as I watched it.
Yeah, I caught a chunk of those episodes. I wasn't very impressed by it. Partly because of the short length of the episodes meant they couldn't go into much detail.
Oh yeah, that's another thing that kind of put me off from watching it again.
And I really hated the interpretation of Wonder Woman on that show. But there were highlights like the ones with Firestorm were pretty good.
I liked the Firestorm on there because he wasn't in Justice League Unlimited.
So they had opportunities with that show, and when they took advantage of those opportunities to spotlight characters that they hadn't spent a lot of time with, it seemed like those were the highlights typically.
I mean, there was even a demon. I liked how the way they did Etrigan on that, because every time I don't know what it is, I get excited when I see him and stuff, because I'm like, he's a character I didn't see much of. Even when Merlin turned the ice cream truck into like a hot rod, I'm like, well, he didn't do that in Justice League, so I'm like, I don't watch this. Or in Brave and the Bold, where him and Batman are running around Victorian England, and I'm like, okay, that's different. I'm like, okay, well, this is what Kirby would have done that. You didn't. I mean, if you were to do it now, you'd want to be more. I think you'd be more Garth Ennis-y. Because that's kind of what I'm looking for now, like different variations of everybody. But with trying to think, because I know it's Batman sells, but I don't know. I just got this craving for I know DC, you have a big toy box. I've seen the toys you made. Okay, I want to see everybody. I want to get the full depth and breadth, and if you do a Wonder Woman show, you do her team ups and you do or supported cast, and you make it, you give it just the same amount of respect you gave Batman. You fill that bench. You put everybody and everything and every piece of mythology in there. You might have to streamline it a bit. You might have to Art Deco it up some places if you're Tim and Radumsky and all of them. I mean, you do that, and I'm cool with that because it gives it like, okay, you lived in this world and this is a world that's unique. If you want to do, say, if Wonder Woman's cartoon was like set in the 40s, you could do that. Or if you do Wonder Woman's cartoon, if it is set in the present day, you got to make an amalgamation of all that stuff, which I think that's probably why I talk about Batman and Superman like cartoons like I do, because it's like a big old stew. It's like they took everything that they liked at best and stirred it up together and put it in this weird, wonderful world where anything could happen. Which I know the comics at the time, and not in the 90s, they didn't do that. I mean, they tried to make the Gotham and the Batman books look more like Gotham in the movies. All right, minus the neon painted street gangs and the Riddler is Jim Carrey and Two-Face and all that. Which I think Two-Face in the comics at the time didn't look nothing like he did in the cartoon.
No.
Which was disappointing.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of people who the cartoon version is going to be the version. So, and I think they did a great job with Two-Face. I never cared for Two-Face until the cartoon, and Richard Mall I thought was so great as
he's
Harvey
perfect.
Dent.
I thought he was black though the first time he played because the way they drew him.
Right. Yeah, some of the features. Yeah,
and I think that's probably like a carryover from like when Billy D. Williams was supposed to play the role.
Well, he looked nothing like Billy Williams, though.
I know he didn't, but I could tell from the way they drew his lips and stuff.
Hey, you have potential for there being a mix there, I would say. Yeah, I could definitely see that. But I mean, obviously, one of the great things about the Batman cartoon is that the influence ran two ways. They took stuff from the comics, but they also gave comics the version of Mr. Freeze that people actually care about.
And also, they put Lockup in there, which I've never heard of him again.
Yeah, that was some weird thing. I think that Chuck Dixon came up with that, and I guess it didn't fly in either medium. So
okay, I mean, I don't know. Lockup's a weird one-off villain. Oh yeah, I mean, Condiment King is nowhere, I don't think. Baby Doll, she isn't in any comics now, or even back then. It would have been funny to see her running around No Man's Land, And that's another thing. If they would have done No Man's Land in the animated series, I would have been all over that. That's between No Man's Land and Nightfall, which they alluded to Batman, I will break you. Or he did, Batman, I will break you. Which in Harley Quinn are doing that one, even though he looks like Comic Bane, but he sounds like this because I have a lovely, lovely voice. But I know I hate to be doing it to Bane, but I feel like once again, where I hated Batman and Robin Bane, I like Tom Hardy Bane because at least he's unique.
Yeah, Bane is a character I really like the concept, and I think that the Vengeance of Bane origin story is a really excellent.
In the cartoon, they kind of really didn't do all that.
You got more of the luchador thing in the cartoon, from what I saw.
Which I like that news voiced by Henry Silva.
Yeah, I do like that the comic books. He really just looks like another white dude, but when you add the voice, you realize that he's not, just your typical American gangster type person.
When Henry Silva did it, and then later on Danny Trejo, I'm like, okay, well, that's who he is. That's what he is. Yeah. So he's Machete, but he's also, I have come out here to break your city. Yeah.
Well, I definitely. I mean, that's one of the worst Batman movies. I hate Batman Rises, The Dark Knight Rises. It's terrible. The guys who defend that one, I'm like, come on, man. I think your politics must be coming into play because that movie sucks.
To me, I like to make fun of it.
Oh yeah. It's bad. It's bad. Well,
I can't help myself.
Anna Hathaway's Catwoman is pretty good in that. That's the only nice thing I'll say about that stupid damn movie.
Yeah. Even though they never mentioned Blackgate in none of the other movies. I thought Blackgate was just a cartoon thing,
But what it reminds me of is Antonio Banderas not too long ago was talking about why he did Puss in Boots for Shrek, and it's because he wanted to make sure that kids could hear his accent in that type of movie, because he never got to hear his accent for anybody but villain. That Latin accent would never come out of anybody's mouth but a villain. But he was a big enough star, and they wanted him for the movie, and that's why he did it. And I think it is important, even though he is a villain. But I think it's important that you hear a different background in Bane's voice, and that's why I don't forgive them for giving Tom Hardy that role in The Dark Knight.
Well, plus, that's why I'm cool with it, because I'm like, well, I never thought of Bane as being English, even though I know in the comic books he's what is he?
Well, I thought he's from Santa Puerte, so
fictional.
A fictional Latin country with a totalitarian dictatorship.
Even though he's the son of what's the guy's King Snake?
Yeah, technically he would be mixed race, although I think King Snake was mixed race as well. But of course he was raised in a Latin dungeon, a Latin prison, so he's acculturated regardless of what blood's in him.
So would he sound like Tom Hardy?
No. He would sound like somebody for whom English is a second language, So,
okay, all right. Well, he would sound. In my head canon, I want to think Henry Silver or Danny Trejo.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as long as you can hear the accent in the voice,
I mean, for me, because I think in Nightfall, before I even knew, I watched a cartoon before I'd seen him in Nightfall, like read the book, because in the cartoon I was like, oh, it's just Henry Silver, and then when they made him look like a gimp, I want to get that action figure. I'm like, well, that's Bane got freaky. I mean, Bane was a top.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is he never. I know that the luchador aspect was there, but until they started drawing him that way in the cartoons, it just never came across. He looked like a bondage freak in the comic books because of how that mask was designed.
Because of the mask. No, you don't even see his mouth. Those red eyes. It's the thing. I don't know. That's the thing with Bane. It's like between him and Doomsday. I like Bane because at least you get to do more with him. Even when Gail Simone had written him in Secret Six, I thought before they knew 52 and screwed up everything. I'm like, okay, Bane's a good guy when he's not trying to break Batman's back or take Venom, because I still got the cartoon version of him. I'm like, okay, he probably would become this before he's in a wheelchair in Batman Beyond and taking Venom to live.
Well, the problem I had with Bane is unless you read the one-shot Vengeance of Bane, he's such a one-note character. You have to know all of his motivations. You have to know his history. And to me, I'm sorry, that comes down to bad writing, even though that writer is usually quite good. Speaking of Chuck Dixon, the co-creator. But if you don't communicate the character's depth in his follow-up appearances, then you failed because he just always seemed like a nothing to me. And then if you
he seems like another heavy.
Just a heavy, yeah. And so if you got somebody, well, to me too, I was a big fan of Killer Croc, and he always felt like a knockoff of Killer Croc, the original version, not the dumb version that he got after the cartoon.
Another one from the cartoon, right?
Yeah, I like the one from the early 80s that Jerry Conway was doing, where he was just like a scary, intimidating dude and a game.
I think in the cartoon they did it the first time around, make him like he'd set up all these traps to try to frame Bullock. And then later on, I'll hit Batman with a rock.
Yeah, he became the Solomon Grundy of the Batman the Animated Series, basically, And then
later on, they made him look more scaly looking, which I like this first design where he looked a little pale blue.
Yeah.
In his face, that look.
And then, of course, you've give Jim Lee turning him entirely into a monster. And then
that to me, that was not my favorite version of him. Yeah. I like the cartoon version. If nothing else, give me that. Give me seasons 1 through 3 of Batman Animated Series version of Croc. Don't give me season 4 because I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And I say it with Poison Ivy. It's like I like her animated version more than I like her comic book version. I like Harley's obvious because that's where she came from.
Yeah.
Joker animated, I like him better than his comic book version. I mean, Scott Snyder, I feel like I gotta say it. He turned him into Saw, and then he cut off his face, and then he gave him the Macklemore haircut, and then I'm thinking he's 2 steps away from becoming Jared Leto Joker in the books, Versus no, he's Mark Hamill. That's all he is. That's all he is. He's Mark Hamill. Do not change that too much, please.
Well, and when they decided to turn him into this relentless, remorseless serial killer, I couldn't stand the character anymore. They turned me off completely on the Joker because they were so busy trying to be edgelords and trying to outdark each other that I can't stand that character anymore. He's been completely ruined for me.
To me, I feel like I got to go back and I got to watch the cartoon over and over. That's what I'll do because I feel like
I mean the Mark Hamill Joker, absolutely. That's the version of the Joker that I like, where he can definitely be a killer, but it's not the only thing that he is.
I mean, even a Mask of the Phantasm, he's trying to have a little fun. Like, I know you never write, and I know you never call, but I'm sending you a little airmail. Don't try jumping out the window this time, Toots. I mean, I got like 2 Harley Quinn Funkos over here. I got like one of what she looked like in the show, and one, the Jimmy Palmiotti in Commander Connor revamped. Roller derby skater girl, and
beg for mercy, scream my name. Never. You are beaten. Now I will break you. Huh? The Venom can't stop it! No! Help me! You can't
Or Maxima. Remember her? Maxima.
I like Maxima. Matter of fact, one of my buddies, Derek William Crabb, that's like one of his absolute favorite characters. He's got a bunch of commissions over and stuff. And I've always really dug Maxima too. That's one of those characters that I really feel like DC has never handled terribly well. And of course, nothing they've done with her since the 90s has resonated with me since they killed her the first time. But she's a really cool, fun character. And I think that she's one of the rare additions to Superman's Rogues Gallery that, I think works and clicks with him and has a role to play in his world.
She showed up once in Superman the Animated Series.
Yeah, they keep trying to throw her at Supergirl, and it just doesn't work because where's the dynamic that they're both women? I mean, there's nothing, like the whole thing is, Maxima is this princess, and she has all these extraordinary powers, and she has all this entitlement, and she doesn't do things for other people. She only does. To me,
she's like female Namor.
Yeah, she's very transactional, and then of course you've got the whole looking for an appropriate baby daddy, and there's just all this stuff. Yeah, there's all this stuff that works for Maxima when she's up against someone like Superman that does not work when she goes against somebody like Wonder Woman. They're not really compatible.
Yeah, I can see those two getting into a fight.
Yeah, I could see a story arc. Sure, I could see but nothing long term. There's nothing for them to fight over.
1-2 issues.
Yeah, I can see an arc. You could probably get an arc out of the two of them.
That's the thing though with DC's villains and then Wonder Woman. It's like I know that Giganta and Cheetah are the most notable. We didn't name all the other ones and even the Greek gods, but I know then again talk about other. Which then makes me think about the CW, how they gave Green Arrow all Batman's villains.
Right. Well, it was a Batman series. Let's be honest. Green Arrow was always a Batman ripoff. And there are aspects of the character that if you play up, he's less of a Batman ripoff. But that was a situation where that's exactly what they wanted. It was a Batman ripoff. So you might as well have him fight Deathstroke and Ra's al Ghul and all these other guys.
Nessa and Talia and Prometheus, who, I don't know, he's a weird one. Did you count him as Batman or is he just Justice League?
He's a utility player, so he's allowed to be owned by different franchises because obviously he was introduced as the anti-Batman in JLA, but he's fought a bunch of people, and of course he had a pretty significant role in Ollie and Roy's life. So that one I'm much more willing to give a pass to. Deathstroke is always going to be a reach. And for another reason, there's no reason why, honestly, Deathstroke shouldn't be a Batman villain. Deathstroke outclasses, in terms of just raw fighting ability and physical power, they shouldn't be fighting each other. He's just not in the same class.
Brand new Batman animated series comic I was telling you about.
Sure, yeah, no, they've done it. I'm not arguing that that's a thing that they do in the comics, but the way that character was set up during the Titans years, he should not be fighting a guy like Batman. Batman, back in those days, he did fight Batman in one of his early arcs, and he beat the holy hell out of the guy. So they're just
better
not,
than the Arkham games.
Yeah, Batman, that's like the Batman Captain America thing. Don't have those two fight because Captain America is going to destroy Batman in a fight.
America's ass.
Yeah, he'll whoop him. He's not going to whoop America's ass. No. It's going to be Cap that brings the whoop ass in that situation. Yeah, because again, it's a super cop versus a super soldier. It's just not really compatible.
And one voiced by Ron Perlman, the other one's Kevin Conroy. I mean, you do your divide there, right? And, okay, I'm not here for you, Batman. I'm here for Robin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way that you use Deathstroke is you make him a physically insurmountable foe. So it's a situation where Batman has to outsmart him, and Batman can definitely outsmart him. Deathstroke and Wonder Woman did have a run-in back in the day, and the only reason why it was a fight at all is Wonder Woman was holding back. As soon as she stopped holding back, she clobbered his ass. Deathstroke is not in Wonder Woman's league. Nobody who could fight Batman, is in Wonder Woman's league, and it shouldn't be as close between Batman and Deathstroke as it is. Deathstroke still physically dominates for the most part, but that means that he's nowhere near Wonder Woman's plane.
I got it. Once again, he's faster, stronger.
Yeah.
He uses about like 90% of his brain or 10% of his brain.
He's DC's Taskmaster, which is evil Captain America,
Which I know about Taskmaster. I mean, that guy's just a Xerox. Mm-hmm. He can't copy everybody but Deadpool, who I also got a figure of right here. I got Deadpool, but no Deathstroke, which if I find a good one, I'm going to get it. As he looked when George Perez drew him.
Yeah. Well, and that Deadpool is Deathstroke plus Spider-Man, so,
Yeah.
But it's a good combination.
Like Ryan Reynolds. Except he's Ryan Reynolds as a ninja.
Yeah, but it's a good combination. And obviously it worked. I mean, I my brother bought New Mutants number 98 when it came out, and we both were so excited for Deadpool. We were like instant fans. We went out and watched a movie in that period called Mobsters that had a character actor in it. They were like, that dude's Deadpool. So we were already fan casting Deadpool back in 91, 92. So yeah, I see the appeal of Deadpool. I'm not slugging on Deadpool.
Which in the cartoon he appeared as a cameo when Morph was changing into people.
Oh yeah.
Then when Evil Xavier changed into him briefly because he never said nothing because one of the few times Deadpool in animation said zip.
Right.
It wasn't him.
And they decided to base a Wolverine origin story on the cartoon appearance, apparently.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
No. He was chatty and then said nothing. But yeah, it's. I mean, I got Carol Danvers right here. I mean, it's surprising because I mean, I think when I was younger, I didn't even know they had anything to do with Miss Marvel. Carol Danvers, currently Captain Marvel. Which I mean, like I say, when you're a kid, you don't really look at the hot move. You don't look at this stuff till, say, a friend of yours got like a bunch of old comics and, hey, there's who this person is or who that person is. Because I know Mystique, I know it's funny. They got movies before Carol did. They were both in the same movie. One was in Avengers Annual, the other one was in Miss Marvel 14. That's the thing. Even when I'm reading Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, I like how the way everybody's designed. Since I've been watching that show, I've been trying to go back and read those comics, and even like the Silver Age stuff. So that's the weird thing. Well, I mean, I got all this stuff on DVD since I wasn't going to get that app. I figured, all right, let me just get the physical media, and I'll pop it on when I feel like it.
Well, it's like I was watching those X-Men movies, and the only one that's available to stream was the first one. Everything else I've had to dig out my physical media to watch if I didn't want to pay for it again. So don't discount physical media.
Oh, I'm not. I got boxes back here. I got boxes of comics and trade paperbacks on one end in my room, and on the other end I got DVDs. I got like everything that you probably ever wanted to watch and then some. I mean, I got like The Prisoner, for God's sake, Patrick McGowan, but I bought that one because I was like, oh, I've never seen this before, and then I want to see Patrick McGowan and other things. I'm like, oh, number 6 done got out. Number 6 is the Ward now with Clint Eastwood and Alcatraz. Oh, Clint Eastwood never get out of this one.
While I'm thinking about it, I'm only a few episodes in the Doom Patrol, but one thing that makes me happy is I clearly they took that amalgamated element that you were talking about that you like, where they take bits and pieces from everything. And my favorite Doom Patrol was always the Keith Giffen, Matthew Clark series. It's the only run of Doom Patrol I've ever read for an extended period of time and enjoyed. The Morrison stuff, I read the first trade. It just didn't grab me. I've read bits and pieces. I'm not a big fan. It just doesn't get me. But I really love that Keith Giffen series, and I see a lot of that in the TV show. So if you're reading the Morrison stuff and if you have a similar reaction to me, give the Keith Giffen run a try. You might actually like it better because I see a lot of those elements in the show, particularly the body horror stuff that they did with Rita Farr. Because
she came back in that, right? Pre-New 52?
Correct.
She was dead for a long time.
They actually brought her back in JLA in an arc that John Byrne had plotted and drew. And then
John Byrne had fingers and everything.
Yeah. And then he did his series that nobody liked and got canceled
I'm not buying the trade of that one.
No. And then they picked up from that with the new Doom Patrol that Giffen did. And so they didn't have to deal with any of the continuity of Rita being back. They just picked up from there. She's back, and we're doing more stories with her and the rest of the Doom Patrol.
So it's like she never died from the Silver Age.
Essentially, yeah. They might have referenced it in passing, but it was never a major thing. They just
because I know in the show, I'm just thinking about what ultimately happened to her and what knocked her off the table for a long time, and I don't know why. It's like I've read what little bit of Silver Age Doom Patrol I did read before I bought the omnibus. That was the one thing that always stuck out. Oh, these people died. Everybody but Robot Man and Beast Boy. The Chief is dead. Negative Man. I don't know what happened to him except the negative spirit went to a woman and became Negative Woman. Now, I got the Eric Larson Kupperberg run in single issues. I bought that one at a flea market because I'm like, oh, Doom Patrol. It ain't Grant Morrison, but I'll buy it because I think I seen him on one episode of Brave and the Bold, and then there was them in the Teen Titans cartoon. So, and I checked out trades from the library of like the Grant Morrison run, all 5 volumes, and I was obsessed with that because I'm like, oh, this is where it gets weird. Oh, look, I like Jane because she's just chaotic, and oh, Dan in the Street. I can identify with Dan in the Street. And I don't know, because that was like, because I read the Wikipedia summary. I'm like, okay, I gotta see this, and then
that's a lot to absorb. You can't absorb that much esoteric material through a wiki page. You really got to read it firsthand, because it's like.
And then when I see it in the show, I'm like, they did Danny. They actually did Danny. It's like one of my favorite episodes on there. Yeah, I know now he's Danny Brick in the new season.
I was still, which I believe is from the comics as well. As a matter of fact, it might have been the Giffen series, because I remember them referencing Danny the Brick in that one. But yeah, I'm only 2 episodes in. I'll probably try to watch an episode tomorrow. But
you're season 1, right?
Season 1 episode, 2 episodes into season 1. Yeah.
Okay, I better not say anything else. But all I can tell you is it's everything that I loved about those characters. Even I never got the chance to read Rachel Pollack's run. That's one that I missed completely, and I want to get that one. I think that's when it was like all Vertigo. It was separated from the DC universe, which I know in the first part of Grant Morrison's run, the Justice League did show up there for like 2 issues, and that was always I feel like that was like a precursor, because in my head canon, I like to think, all right, Grant Morrison stuff is all fits together, even if it was tangential, like the weird residue from Doom Patrol rubbed off into his JOA, and then rubbed off into his Batman, and then All Star Superman. If you want to count that into my head canon of like, all right, with Grant Morrison written it, it's all canon.
Well, I mean, one of the great things with Morrison is you'll go in there and he'll try to find how he can make everything canon. So not just his own stuff, but everything counts. Canon films. Because that's his Batman in Justice League. I still think that's the same Batman who went for all that crap, from Final Crisis till Batman Inc. And I'm very hesitant on counting like the New 52, even though it's the same story that was carried on, just in a new continuity. Even though the costume wasn't the same, because he had the circle back for like a little bit. I don't know what it is. I like Batman with the circle on his bat as opposed to no circle on the bat. And I don't know, when Morrison tries to bring back a classic thing, the voices from on high want to just say, nope, we're not doing that anymore. You're not even getting underwear outside of your suit, Batman, so we're not doing that. Well, or you Superman. It's got to suck for him to spend years on a story arc and then change the entire universe around him before he manages to finish. Like within a year of his being able to finish, it's like, oh, we're in an entirely different universe now. So I mean, that's a rough position to find oneself in.
Which, I mean, I feel sorry for Morrison on that, because I'm like, you this is a labor of love, even if nobody understood it. Even Batman of Zero and R, I kind of like that one because that was weird and crazy, and yeah, it was a callback to like Silver Age Batman, which they also did on Batman Brave and the Bold. They did an episode about Batman of Zero and R.
Well, and he brings in Damian Wayne, and he tells the story with that character, and then he kills the character off, and then I think that the expectation was that then Tin comes back, and he's Robin again, and he basically leaves the toys the way he found them, and they just won't let that happen, No,
Damian's a moneymaker, so we got to keep that kid alive.
Yeah, and most probably he was born to die, and he was just a victim of his success. So it's funny. It's like, this is a situation, like you look at the new X-Men, where he did all this stuff to evolve the X-Men and show a different path to those characters. Yeah, and then they immediately quash all that and try to pretend like none of it happened.
And then Joss Whedon comes in and tries to bring back the good old days, sort of.
And then he does his Batman thing where he fully intends for it to all come to an end and then be able to move past it. And instead they keep everything that he didn't necessarily want to keep in that one. So
that's what makes me kind of like Grant Morrison stuff more than other writers, because at least I'm like, this guy fought all this through and he's going to see it to the end.
Yeah. Within itself, it'll be consistent, and within itself, it'll have that flavor that you're looking for from Morrison. It's what comes after you have to worry about. But
which I think after he was done with Batman, I didn't even want to read Batman, because I'm thinking Scott Snyder once again. After the little bit I did read, I'm like, I mean, 0 Year is okay because I like the costume, because I got an action figure of that one too. That's the thing, because it looks like the late 30s, early 40s, purple gloved, Detective Comics. Which one was it? 27. It looks like that Batman, just Capullo-ized. And funny enough, I got like Kelly Carey over here because she looks the closest thing to Silver Age Robin. I don't know, my action figure buying is almost like my cartoon watching and my comic book reading. I'm very specific. It's like they got to look of a certain era in order for me to be like, okay, I'll look at this.
Well, stuff. It's funny because I bought what was available when I was a kid, and up through until the 90s when DC Direct started doing their stuff. And so when they had one Marsh Manhunter figure, one so-and-so figure, figure, I would buy them. And then once they started coming out with variant versions of those characters, that's when I started going, well, I'm going to wait till they make this extremely specific version of the character, and it has to be just the right price. And basically, I managed to talk myself out of buying action figures for the most part for the last 20 some odd years now. Yeah. So
for me, I just got this feeling like if I'm looking for, I got like a Superman here that's like a Darwin Cook style Fleischer Superman with the black with the black
shield.
Yeah. Anyways, I bought that one because I'm like, well, I'm not going to see that one anywhere else, so I better get it. And that's the thing. It's like, I don't know what it is. I have this weird relationship with all these characters because if I see them look very interesting, not like I've seen them always, like even with Superman with long hair, I want to get a figure of that because as a kid, when they made figures of Superman with long hair, they always had an action gimmick to it, or they did want to steal. You know, he had a gimmick to it. You know, I know they've gone back and done, you know, revamped versions of those characters. I put it like this: I'm not buying New 52 Batman,
right,
or a Rebirth Batman. I mean, I'll get Batman with as he looked like on the cartoon.
Yeah.
And he's from season 1 of Batman Animated Series or season 2. Even though the McFarlane one was a bit too top heavy, so I didn't want to get that one. I like the DC Direct one, which looked more proper.
Clark Kent. It's a strong name. I like it.
Who are you?
Maxima. You don't know how long I've searched for you.
I mean, late 80s DC, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, Jim Aparo was still drawing Batman at the time, was he?
Yeah. Well, hell, he was still doing Batman into Nightfall.
Okay.
And he was next to blind by then. You know? Jim Aparo? Yeah, I mean, his vision got so bad, that's why they started throwing inkers like Bill Sienkiewicz on top of them because he was almost blind. He was probably had his nose touching the paper while he was drawing those last few years of comic books.
I mean, that's sad.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at pictures of him, he's got like full-on Coke bottle glasses on, you know, in the 90s. So
because that's the thing. I think when I was starting to go back and really look at older comics, I always saw it between Neil Adams, Batman art. I always saw Jim Aparo's a lot.
Oh, I love Jim Aparo, but the 70s stuff, you know.
I think that's the part. I think when I watched the Brave and the Bold cartoon, I'm kind of expecting that a little bit, you know, those big hands they drew on Batman, and I think he was the one who drew Batman getting his back broken. I know Dan Jurgens drew Superman getting the crap beat out of him, and also like the Brave and the Bold cartoon. But yeah, 70s artists, because when I was watching that cartoon, I had no idea that. I think when that cartoon came out, I was vaguely aware about Brave and the Bold, because when he was talking about the Hammers of Justice. Then I remember I was listening to a podcast with Michael Bailey. I know I keep bringing his name up, but I mean, I got to talk to him one of these days. I'm sure he'd love to hear what I got to say. Yeah, I know, we'll probably out-talk each other at this point. But anywho, I know his dog will show up. All right, well, 70s artists, 70s DC artists. I don't know what it was. I mean, when I look at DC in retrospect, between the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s, it was a house style. Nobody did the McFarlane stuff or the Jim Lee stuff. Or at least at Marvel. And Marvel, they were willing to experiment, right? Because, I don't know, Marvel always felt like they were cool. You know, they did stuff that you wouldn't think of, like with what Kirby brought to it, and then Buscema, and then unexpected artists like, I think Geffen was over there too, right? Mm-hmm. And John Romita Sr. and your Steve Ditko, who also worked at DC, which I can see why I liked a few of his characters, because they all, like I said, between Spider-Man, the Creeper, and the Question, and maybe even his Blue Beetle, you know, they feel like what heroes you could be, maybe, you know?
Well, the thing is, too, is he became a devout objectivist.
And I don't like objectivists.
No. Given, you know, there are no Ayn Rand fans in this household, but he wanted to have his characters more and more grounded in a reality. He rejected more and more of the fantastic.
Hawk and Dove.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Hawk and Dove's an interesting one, too, because that was almost like he would draw the comic book, and then the scripter would come in with a completely different political mindset. So the comic book would be about how awful Dove was and how cool Hawk was. And then the scripter would go in there and do everything he could to reverse it with just pure dialogue. And so, yeah, that was a weird back and forth conflict the whole time that thing was going on.
But I can't imagine him drawing Wonder Woman, though. That probably would have been weird.
I think he did draw her once or twice back in the 70s.
Once or twice. I've never seen that.
Yeah, I'd have to hunt around, but I want to say he maybe did. You know what he did? There was I think a 1977 Wonder Woman special. Not Wonder Woman 77, but published around like 70, somewhere between 77 and 79. And he didn't do the whole thing, but he did a chunk of it involving the Amazons, and they looked weirdly like the demons from Stalker and stuff. You know, they don't even look like.
I think that's another book I think I saw like in a DC Guide to Inking, which I got that because I know, surprise and shock. I make comic books myself, so you know, hence why I like this stuff so darn much. It's because I'm trying to make my own.
Well, in Stalker, Steve Ditko inked by Wally Wood. I adore Wally Wood, and it makes Ditko look so good. And Stalker #1 was one of the comics I had. Like, it was one of my earliest comic books. It was one of those comics that I don't remember buying it. I don't know how it got into the household. It was just always there. And so I have a weird affection for Stalker, but also the combination of Ditko and Wally Wood, especially when you're talking about inking. Wally Wood just did such a magnificent job on anything he inked.
I saw a little bit of his Daredevil.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
I saw a little bit of his Daredevil.
I'm a big fan of Thunder Agents. And I love looking at his Thunder Agents work. But anything that he inked back in the day made me happy. Because he was one of those heavy-handed inkers where everything looked kind of like Wally Wood as long as Wally was inking it. And I loved Wally Wood, so you couldn't go wrong there.
I mean, with Jerry Ordway anchor.
Jerry Ordway did do a lot of inking. In fact, he inked a good chunk of Crisis on Infinite Earths. And Jerry Ordway was heavily influenced by Wally Wood.
Okay, because see, I mean, I got like a few issues of his stuff. He's another guy that follows me on Twitter. I mean, I got a lot of these old heads following me on Twitter.
Yeah, Jerry Ordway is one of those guys. He'll do a great drawing for you, but you're going to stand in line for 3 to 5 hours to get to him for him to start that drawing. And so I'd like to get something from him, but I'm always juggling multiple artists, and I never have that time frame to sit there.
That's one little bit I did see of his Wonder Woman from like that one trade paperback image where she has a short hair and she's holding a staff or something like that. I mean, it looked really, really cool because I've seen some of his Superman work, and that's another one where I'm like, he drew the Batman 89 comic adaptation, which that's another one I want to get on Amazon because I was finna get it before my birthday, which is like it's like on a Monday. So anyways, happy early birthday to me. So that's why I got that Wonder Woman omnibus that I won't have to wait on the day to get it. But yeah, I mean, I saw it. I'm like, I should get that, but then I got that movie. But I should get it, but I got that movie. I saw the movie on TV during the 90s. So once again, growing up with all this DC stuff in television versus reading it in comics later. I mean, I never got the full-on Toy Biz figures, which my uncle and my aunt always got me about Wolverine, Juggernaut. I think we had no Gambits. I got it was like Wolverine and Spider-Man. I got like 2 free different versions of Spider-Man, 2 free different versions of Wolverine, Juggernaut because we needed a heavy. I don't know. I probably said something like, yeah, I want that character. Or we got him for Christmas, so we didn't know what we were going to get. I had like an Iceman. I mean, if you told myself back then that Iceman was going to be gay, I probably would have, not knowing any better, I probably would have scoffed at it or been like, why are you making fun of me because of this character or whatever? Because, kids are mean, teenagers are mean, and then adults are even meaner. But now I got an Iceman figure, so man, look at me now.
But again, it's weird watching those X-Men movies. Again, it's like, that dude's supposed to be gay, right? Did he put himself into this? I mean, maybe it explains why he decided to have a girlfriend that he couldn't kiss without, passing out.
I mean, Rogue and him didn't make sense to me, no way. I'm used to Rogue being with Gambit, and Gambit being who he is, can't help himself.
But if you're a mutant who's in the closet, then Rogue is absolutely the person you would go with. It suddenly makes way more sense.
I look at it now and go like, how can I have been so stupid? Because I don't know, once again, when you're trying to figure all this out, you don't know what's what. You going by what people tell you and what you see around you, and then, I mean, even with Wonder Woman, for crying out loud, like back then I was like, oh no, I mean, I would sheepishly say, yeah, I like Wonder Woman, and other people say, oh yeah, I'll do her, because I was around a bunch of immature idiots, who I guess if I did what they did, I get slapped or I get cursed out, or a few girlfriends I did have, I just had to watch myself by not being an insensitive asshole.
Right.
Even though I was the most sensitive person there, didn't know why I was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I look at myself then and go like, you just don't know anything. And look at myself now and go, you know what? I'm not going to sit up here and say, well, man, that's too girly. I'm like, whatever.
So, did you have anybody to look up to in the, in fiction?
Well, that's weird because I liked Spider-Man because he was a loser and I was a loser. Yeah, I mean, Batman. I mean, I wanted to be Batman, but there's no way because I had asthma. So, and Wonder Woman I liked because she was like the mother that my aunt kind of reminded me of a little bit. She was caring. She did the right thing. Even when things were tough, she did the right thing. Wolverine, another character I wanted to be. Now I look at it now in hindsight, I'm like, nah, Wolverine's overplayed. Maybe X-23, but not Wolverine. I'm like, yeah, that guy stole Cyclops' woman multiple times. So now in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, Wolverine, I'd hang out with him. I mean, Storm was awesome, but that was till I read those comics. So it was a weird one because I liked her. I mean, at first I'm thinking, because she's a black superhero. And then later I'm going like, she's a badass. She's a badass and she's a leader. And she she does things that nobody else would want to do, and even step up when the supposed men of the group like Cyclops and Wolverine are just acting out of pocket and will tell them. I already mentioned Spider-Man, did I? So,
well, you were talking about Storm. I remember I started reading the X-Men comics at just the right time for Storm because she was just starting to transition into her Mohawk phase.
I think I read reprints of her Mohawk phase. I think that's what really made me like her.
Yeah, and she really started coming into her own in that time period because once she became the leader of the X-Men and having to fight Callisto and becoming the leader of the Warlocks.
After a while. And with no powers after a while.
Yeah, and eventually having to continue to be the leader of the X-Men without powers. She just had an extraordinary journey. And
I think that's what it was when I was reading the reprints. Because at first I'm thinking she's from the cartoon. She does, we need storms of wind and ice.
Well, and Storm was also the reason why I quit reading X-Men because she had an arc when Will Portasio and Tom Rainey were doing the book where she was supposed to Forge proposed marriage to her and
she said no.
She did not say no.
She didn't.
He assumed that she was going to say no and walked out on her. And at the end of the issue, she's on her knees crying, saying that she was going to say yes. That's where the tragedy came from.
I haven't read that one in so long, but, but I always knew that those two. If anybody was to be married to Storm, I'd say Forge.
But
Yukio or Callisto.
But they did that arc, and I really enjoyed that. And then afterwards, they just the character work just trailed off into nothing, and it was just one action scene after another. And that's when I knew it was time to leave. And the books never recovered for years after that because I would continue to flip through it as a retailer. And it's I jumped off at the right time, but that was one of the last arcs where I was still invested in the X-Men. And then once that was resolved, and it was just more superhero action, I wasn't there.
I think as a kid, it was because of the cartoon, because of her, because it all goes back to cartoons. So I'm thinking she's strong. She's telling Gambit to stuff it sometimes. She's telling Wolverine to stuff it. She's trying to be like, Cyclops, step up, because Cyclops is like, but I'm worried about Jean. And Wolverine punching Cyclops in the gut. Anytime, teacher's pet. Next time, I'm gonna use these, and go skink. Because I got those cartoons on DVD too. So for me, once again, nostalgia for this is before I read those, at least the 80s stuff. Before Claremont got off the run. Because I think I read Essential X-Men volumes 1 through 4 or 3 because they did so many volumes of that book, and I think I was reading X-Men Classics because I wanted to read in color. And I don't know, this was because I think as a kid I had gotten X-Men #1, the Jim Lee one, and I got that in my collection, the newsstand cover, the covers you join together, and then the deluxe edition with the gatefold. As a kid, I think I had that one issue 2, and I think I read them so much I tore them to shreds. You know what I mean? Because cartoon was out. This is my everything. And with Storm, she was like that one where I'm like, okay, she's being the adult here when nobody else wants to be the adult. When Xavier is not there, when Rogue needs a friend, because I always liked it with her and Rogue, they had a friendship, right? I mean, they weren't lovers or anything, but they cared about one another.
More so in the cartoon, because I don't remember them really having much of a relationship in the comics.
I mean, in the comics, though, it seemed like it was very sporadic, because she was trying to be a mentor to Kitty Pryde. And I think when I read those comics, since Kitty Pryde wasn't in the cartoon, it was Jubilee, I kind of see what they did there, And then X-Men Evolution came along, and once again, I'm busy rereading those old comics to try to find what they're mining from, you know what I mean? So once again, it's all about, I'm watching this, but yet I'm reading about it here and putting the two together in my own head to try to be like, why do I like this character? I think growing up, it was just Storm, Gambit, even though my brother liked Gambit because he was cool, and Iceman showed up for one episode on that cartoon. But I had an action figure of him, but he showed up once. Trying to think who else. Well, as a kid, I mean, Superman was another character I liked, but I think it was at a young age, it was Christopher Reeve movies. Even Superman 4. I'm guilty. I've watched that movie when I was a kid, so I'm like, oh yeah, Superman with the Statue of Liberty and Luke the Nuclear Man, Now I look at it and go, this movie could have saved Cannon, or it put Cannon in the shitter, so they just pulled the chain and flushed it. But I mean, I don't know what. I guess what Superman is he was just the cool, responsible dad that I never had. Whereas in Batman, it's you're a rich uncle, you're a rich asshole uncle who means well, but he is the knight, mostly because of that cartoon. So I'm like, yeah, he's cool. Then Robin, I think Dick Grayson came in my teen years a little bit, because that's right around the time I discovering him, Donna Troy, and Beast Boy and all them because of another cartoon. So once again, all these cartoons just culminate in my favorites, Whereas the Spawn is I don't want to be Spawn. Savage Dragon was cool, even though his cartoon was a little bit, I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't what Eric Larson was writing and drawing, I'll say that much. when I read those books, I'm like, oh, they have sex in here. Dragons losing an R. Alex Wild really wants to bone him.
I looked through some recent issues. They've gone like full porn. It's stunning.
I gotta get that.
No, I mean there's like I'm not joking. I mean, like I can't. I don't want to go into detail, but it's like things are dripping and stuff. It's
well,
nuts.
I mean, I put like that's why I like Eric Larson. Even though when I seen that cartoon, I'm like, this is not what I read. Okay?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the best example that I can think of is you've got a guy in the first episode of Savage Dragon who's one of the main villains. He's a big brawny dude, a muscle guy, and they're fighting everything else. And this same character gets his face blown off in the second issue of Savage Dragon, his only appearance.
Wait, you're talking about Basher?
Basher, yeah. So it's like
the cartoon. He should. I mean, I look at now and go, Basher should be dead.
Right. You know, he got shot in the face. He's gone.
I mean, because Super Patriot, who was never on that cartoon, but I look at it now and go, if you were to redo that cartoon now, I'd like to see the Super Patriot bits and, you know, Overlord and all that stuff. Because in the cartoon, Overlord got away, whereas in the comics, he died.
Now, didn't they
eventually Dragon capped him in the mouth?
So did Playmates never do a Super Patriot figure?
No, they didn't.
Okay, so it was McFarlane and then the whatever that line was of the creator-owned characters.
Yeah, I don't know. I had like the battle damage version of Savage Dragon as a kid. That was like my only figure. I had to use them in place of the Hulk because I did not have any Hulk figures. So he was like my de facto Hulk, except he had a fin on his head. So
I was so desperate to have a Hulk figure, I bought one missing a leg at a flea market because I would take a one-legged Hulk over no Hulk at all when I didn't have any other options.
And that cartoon was coming out around the same time, so the Hulk was another character I liked, even though because I had anger issues as a kid. So once again, I was the angry people and the people who were losers that I gravitated to. Versus, I want to be Batman. He's angry, but he can do something. Where the Hulk, if he does something, everybody better watch out. If Wolverine does something, everybody better watch out. If Spider-Man maybe loses control, you better watch out. You know. So once again, it's like I liked the angry characters, which I guess that said too much about me back then when I was younger. Like, I got angry.
I can relate. Wolverine was my favorite when I was a kid too. I wanted to be.
But the Hulk, because of that TV show, it's like, oh no.
Well, in the show, he had those bushy eyebrows. He was just so severe looking.
Yeah. I mean, Lou Ferrigno and that.
Oh, that show too. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the animated one they did in the 90s where they kept the bushy eye, short cropped hair looking Hulk. I can see out of my childhood characters, there were those. Even though Spawn, I'm surprised I ever got to watch a little bit of it as a kid, let alone the movie.
You couldn't get more than a few minutes into that before somebody was cussing or having sex or getting their head blown off. So,
another one, like my mom, because my uncle had it on one night. I stuck out there and I'm like, oh, what's this? There's a guy with a cape and he's talking like Keith David. Even I didn't know who Keith David was back then. I'm like, this guy sounds a little sad. I think I found a DVD of that at a dollar store one time, like the complete first season. I should have held on to it, but I pawned it because I needed money. Heaven forbid, if I try to find it now, it's gonna be expensive.
Yeah, just like that's my childhood. It's like I had this thing, my parents pawned it, we needed some money, so I'm with you.
But yeah, we had like the VHS and the DVD, so I'm like, Spawn, because I was allowed, like, you're not supposed to watch that or read that. I'm like, I didn't even know they were selling it. Until later on when I bought those comics, I'm like, okay, the comic book went in Looney Tunes in some bits. Even though John Leguizamo was great in the movie. But in the animated series, he was that was not John Leguizamo if they would have really let him let loose.
Thanks a lot, pal.
Yeah, right. My pleasure, pal.
I know. That's the one movie where I'm like, I like it, despite its flaws. Jeff Goldblum being basically the mad tyrant of a planet that only, has junk on it. He's like Willy Wonka, but messed up, which is a character I want to see more of. I don't know about Benicio del Toro's Collector. I want to see more of that. They already killed Kurt Russell, who was basically the Planet Thing. I call him the Planet Thing because of the beard, and he was in The Thing, which I just got on Blu-ray, so I've been watching that lately.
And he comes back around to Keith David.
Keith David, yeah. Yeah, which I want to see him in a Marvel movie, or at least a DC movie.
I'm trying to think, he was the Despero voice in Justice League, and I thought that was cool. But it's like Keith David is so closely associated with Spawn. For me, I have trouble seeing him do anything else superhero things. It's like it's such an iconic turn. Like I really want the Jamie Foxx movie to happen, but it's going to be so weird to not hear Keith David's voice coming out of that body.
I mean, because Keith David brought sorrow, and he brought sadness, and he brought power, and I mean, even when Keith David cusses, that's cool. I mean, oh, okay, this guy's telling me off. I better listen.
Well, I mean, Jimmy Fox is a pretty good impersonator. I wonder if he can do Keith David.
I haven't heard it. I mean, I'd like to see him try. I mean, I don't know. Surprise me, I'm saying.
Yeah, the closer he can get, the better.
Surprise me. Yeah, even though that's the fake Keith David's, like, you can't replace. I mean, he did Goliath on Gargoyles, and I think he did like the voice for the Army Navy thing, and then he was in something about Mary. Oh boy, Keith David. I mean, he's a national treasure. I mean, like every other actor I like, they're all national treasures to me and nobody else. Like Steve Buscemi, Danny Trejo, it's like you put these people in movies, give these people awards for God's sake.
Well, they're all cult favorites at least.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Buscemi, I want to see him in a Marvel movie. I don't know what he might do in it. I mean, all right, you talk about Keanu Reeves in it, but after seeing John Wick, I don't know. Would Star-Lord really want to put up with that? Would he kill his space dog and then it's going to be on? Because I feel like that's when you're just asking for trouble.
I know there's a movement to have him be Moon Knight. I don't know how far that went.
I haven't played. But I know there's going to be a car in it and a dog in it. I want to see that. Oh no, they got Mark Spector's car and they killed his dog. He killed 900 frost giants with a pencil. And John Leguizamo in there again. I mean, that's the thing with all this. I mean, MCU is good with casting, and DCEU not so much. But you can almost throw a curveball in there. I don't know, movies, right? Yeah, but Barrymore, though. Great in the MCU and the comics, not really attached. And I'm done.
I think we wrapped it. Well, great talking with you. I had fun, and we're going to do it again. If you come up with something, let me know. But otherwise, you've got several segments in this Marvel Handbook issue. So I'll be hollering at you again to do some more of those.
I mean, you did bring me Bullseye, and I was thinking about that one, but then I would have been talking about Colin Farrell. I'm Bullseye. I haven't seen season 3 of that yet, so.
Me either. It's too much of a commitment. I'm just sorry, because I got to watch some of the other shows to get to that show. So, I got to watch some of the other seasons.
I kind of like Bullseye, but once again, despite Ben Affleck saying he was never going to be in a superhero movie, the one thing I liked from that movie, two things, well, actually, Michael Clark Duncan is Kingpin, and then Colin Farrell's Bullseye. I mean, even when he got shot through the hands, I'm like, no, it's the best thing about this movie.
Exactly. Yeah. Clark Duncan is the only actor I've seen that could actually portray the mass and the intimidation factor of Kingpin, just being that big.
Because it reminded me of Roscoe Lee Brown's portrayal on Spider-Man animated series, where he just had that voice.
And then Colin Farrell was just obviously having a blast playing Bullseye. He was just having so much malicious fun there. And it was such a drag.
But in my MCU headcanon, I feel like he's still running around there.
Yeah.
Him and Nick Nolte are still just existing.
Right.
Nick Nolte, from the Hulk,
gotcha, yeah.
Hey, that's right, Banner. I know you're on a junk planet. Or talk to my son.
but then you've got...
Tony's sort of like, I don't know, you crazy janitor. Get out of here with your Hulk dogs.
But the problem is then you have to go back and watch Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner, and that's just a total drag.
Nah, that's the one thing about the movie I didn't like.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you want to watch the villains, and you got the quote-unquote heroes. Like, could you guys go away? I don't need to watch you guys fighting on a playground again. It's like, stick with the guys that are actually cool, making me enjoy this.
Give me more Bullseye and give me more Kingpin.
Right.
And if you want, like I said, Nick Nolte's just shuffling in the broom at the Kingpin's hideout with Wesley over there, which is another actor I've seen in other movies where I'm like, hey, that's Wesley. That's a Kingpin's toady.
Yeah, I can't believe that Nick Nolte has survived this long. I can't believe that of all the people that have lived, after all the stuff he's put his body through, that guy's still kicking around.
Well, he knows how to party. I probably couldn't hang with him, so that's No, you whippersnapper, you're doing it wrong. And Eddie Murphy like, I mean, my buddy over here parties all the time.
Well, I mean, that's a perfect example, though. Look at how Eddie Murphy has aged versus how Nick Nolte has aged. And,
you see
can
Nick
see
Nolte
the mileage.
with a beard.
Yeah.
No, Nick Nolte with a beard looks like he looks exactly like his character from the Hulk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I make fun of that movie, but I don't know. Sam Elliott was good in it. As Thunderbolt Ross.
He's still my Thunderbolt Ross. Yeah, he's still my Thunderbolt Ross. Nobody will ever top him.
And Jennifer, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Connolly.
Connolly, yes, Jennifer Connolly. She's another one. I'm like, I liked her Betty. I liked it Elliot's Ross. I liked it Nick Nolte as David Banner. Yeah, I know his name was David Banner and Bruce was Bruce. But I don't know why. I just find that movie hilarious. That Josh Lucas guy, whoever he was, he is Talbot. I could take it or leave it.
No, the Talbot's on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you know.
Well,
Adrian Pasdar as Talbot in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., not as Graviton, as Talbot. That is perfect.
Yeah, but I don't know. He's just another character. After watching that movie, I'm like, because these are the characters that are not on the Bill Bixby show, which I'm trying to think, well, why Jack McGee's running around there? Why this should be Sam Elliott over here with his mustache and a tank. And then Nick Nolte's still like, I was in Blue Chips once. I was in Blue Chips. And Eddie Murphy like, we got another 48 hours to find the Hulk. That's a movie they never made. But I'm trying to think how I'm going to say this because there's so many tangents I've been on. But yeah, I don't know. I guess my headcanon for the MCU is all the characters that Thanos didn't snap. They're still there, right? Like Colin Farrell's Bullseye still running around. And the other Betty, I don't count her. The one that was in the Edward Norton movie.
She was fine.
Even though she's all right. Even though she was also in the movie with Ben Affleck, Armageddon, where Bruce Willis and Steve Buscemi and Michael Clark Duncan were all trying to stop an asteroid. Oh yeah, Will Patton, who was also on the Swamp Thing show, is General Avery Sunderland, which is another weird thing. I'm trying to think. There's so many actors who've been in so much stuff. I just find myself just going on this rabbit hole of I've seen you and stuff. I've seen you and stuff and seen stuff. Do you ever get like that?
Sometimes. I try to compartmentalize though. You know, it's like for me, I'll take this person's performance and I'll take the same actor and his another performance. And I'll try to isolate the two characters because as much as possible. There's some guys though, like Ben Affleck's not a great actor, so they're all kind of Ben Affleck by the time he's done.
Can't hear you.
Hello?
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hello?
I need a photo opportunity. I want a shot at redemption. Don't want to end up a cartoon. In a cartoon graveyard. We think you're special. Alan Boyce, Dr. Ange, Billy Hines, Brad Leonard, Chris at Batbooks for Beginners, Chris Dunford, who added RSP Forever, Chris Lydon, Dave's Comic Heroes blog, Ed Moore at Teal Productions, The Hammer Strikes, Random Geek, E-Stuff, Derek W.C. of History of Comics on Film, Iowa's Joe Was, The Irredeemable Shag, JMT Productions, Julia Raul, who added, this was such an awesome conversation about DC Comics stuff. I had a lot of fun. Kailash Jwalamaki, writer and media in charge. Keith G. Baker, who added, you've been sitting on that interview for a while. Didn't Raul Julia die a while ago? I hope you asked him some questions about Tequila Sunrise. Great flick. Lee, Lorenzo Sleestak, Maxo, Miguel Quiroz, Men, My Comic Book Collection 70s to 90s, Nuno Quaresma, Randy Caldwell, Relatively Geeky Podcast Network, Richard Field, Roger Preby, Ronald Clark, Sam Lowe, Satin Tights, A Wonder Woman Podcast, Scott X, Sean Phillips, Superbound, Tim Price, The Podcrasher, and Twins Are Rising.
The preceding program is a non-profit fan production. Any copyrighted materials contained therein are believed borrowed under fair use with no copyright infringement intended. Please feel free to leave comments at Rolled Spines Productions WordPress blog. You can also send us Twitter comments through the Rolled Spine Podcast Twitter. Thank you for listening.